Good day, dear students. I hope that you're all doing well and that you're safe at home with your families. My name is Jean-Paul Dervaux, and this is part two of our preparation for presentation number 4, which is going to be a speech to persuade, a persuasive presentation. You're going to try to sway or influence or convince your audience of something, whatever topic that you select. Well, so far in this course, you've already done 4 presentations. Presentation number 1 was a personal experience. Presentation number 2 was an opinion presentation. Then you had the midterm where you used the presentation aids or visual aids. And presentation 3 was a speech to inform, to give us information. This presentation 4 is a speech to persuade. So right now we are on page 188 in the book, chapter 9. And we're looking at organizing our presentation. You organize your speech. Well, you already know from your writing class last semester and from this class that you organize your speech. You have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. Now, your introduction will consist of, number 1, an opener building on areas of agreement with the audience. Number 2, a statement of persuasive claim, which will consist of saying, I'm going to convince you, or I'm going to persuade you, or I'm going to try and persuade you of whatever topic you've chosen. Number 3, the preview of persuasive points. Well, will be the reasons why, or the support, the points which will support your persuasive claim, or why should we do this? Then we have the body, where you give details about your persuasive points. And finally, you have a conclusion, which consists of a summary. The summary contains the same elements that you have in number 2 and number 3, which are your persuasive claim and what you mentioned in your preview, and a memorable concluding remark. And of course, in between, we have transitions, which indicate to your audience where you are within the presentation. Those are very important as well. So let's take a look at them one by one. Number 1, the opener, building on areas of agreement. The introduction is very important. In order to convince your listeners to agree with you, you're going to present something which they may not agree with to begin with. So you're trying to agree on something at the beginning. So it's essential to give them a reason to trust you, see you as a person who thinks just like they do. So one way to do this is to introduce some common goals. You know, we all want the same basic things in life. Everybody wants to be healthy. Everybody wants to be happy. Common problems. We all face with certain problems or issues. We're all concerned about this particular problem. Common experiences. We all know what it's like to do this. So, for example, we can look at the example here. Example A. The persuasive claim is, highway speed limits should be reduced to 50 miles per hour, about 80 kilometers an hour. Well, imagine you trying to persuade your friends that they should start driving in 80 per hour and not more. Well, it's going to be what we call a tall order to fill. Now, one good way to start is by saying most of us know people who had friends or family injured or killed in terrible car accidents on the highways. Certainly, we've all read or heard about these tragedies in the news. We all want to live long, happy, healthy lives. No one wants to worry about whether they will arrive at their destination safely every time they get in the car. We all agree on that. This is an opener based on areas of agreement. And then you you will make your statement here, which may be hard to swallow. Highway speed limits should be reduced to 50 miles per hour. Another example here, capital punishment, which is the death penalty, should be legal in the context of Europe, for example, where it's not legal. And here we have the example. I'm sure everyone here is concerned about crime in our community. Many of us know that it isn't always safe to go out alone at night or even to walk through a dark parking lot to get to our car. All of us wants to feel safe in our homes, in our cars, and on the streets. We would all like to see the amount of crime reduced. Everybody agrees. So this would be an example of an opener building on areas of agreement. The next step is your persuasive claim. And here we have some examples. The maximum speed limit on US highways should be 50 miles per hour. So here you would word it as, I'm going to persuade you, or I'm going to try to persuade you that the maximum speed limit on US highways should be 50 miles per hour. And for this one, capital punishment should be legal nationwide. I'm going to try to persuade you that capital punishment should be legal nationwide. And then you will make your persuasive points, meaning the 3 reasons why you believe that this should be done or this should be accomplished. So here we have an example, donate blood to a hospital blood bank. Well, I hope to persuade you to donate blood to a hospital blood bank for several reasons, for 3 reasons, for a number of reasons. The first reason being blood donations save lives. The second reason will be blood donation is perfectly safe and painless. And the third reason, it's very convenient. The second example related to casino gambling should be legal in Los Angeles. There are 3 important reasons why we should support casino gambling in our city. The first reason will be the creation of new jobs, which will reduce unemployment. The second reason will be a proposed sales tax increase will not be necessary. And the third reason will be the city will have more funds to improve public facilities. Now, within the body, you have to give specific details and supporting information, supporting your claims. And some of your listeners may be indifferent or may be hostile to what you're trying to put forward. And some listeners don't see how the topic relates to them. So in order to persuade listeners You must convince them that your topic is interesting, important, and relevant to them. For example, if you're trying to persuade us that the football team Real Madrid is the best team in the world, well, in your mind, yeah, the Real Madrid is the best team, but you may be talking to an audience which doesn't really care, or who think that Barcelona is the best team. So you have to try to um, insert information which will persuade them that really Real Madrid is an interesting um, and worthwhile team. It's important and it's relevant to them, meaning, well, you will enjoy it. You will have to find certain points to persuade your audience that what you're trying to present is interesting to them. And here in your book, you have a couple examples. A student wanting to persuade the class to buy water purification systems. According to the speaker's opinion survey, if he conducted that, his classmates were indifferent to his topic because they had never given it any thought and didn't believe it was very important. However, he found a newspaper story claiming that the quality of water in the community was the worst in the United States. In the article, doctors warned that drinking this water could increase the risk of cancer, and this fact helped persuade the audience that the topic was relevant to them. And then there's another example which you can read here, which is related to casino gambling. Now, the next point here is hostile listeners, meaning listeners who totally disagree with what you're trying to persuade them of. And here we have an example, a student wanting to persuade the class to donate blood to a hospital blood bank. According to this audience's and students' audience analysis, there were two reasons why his classmates didn't want to be blood donors. Number one, they were afraid of catching a disease from a dirty hypodermic needle. And number two, they didn't have transportation to get to the hospital. So in order to refute the first reason, the student interviewed the nurse in charge of the hospital blood bank, and she explained that an individually wrapped and sterilized needle is used for every blood donor, which refutes this point of hostility. And number two, all needles are thrown away after each use, therefore it's impossible to catch a disease. And to refute the second reason here, the student didn't have transportation. A bus goes from campus directly to the hospital every 15 minutes, and the hospital offers a free transportation service to all blood donors. And we have another example related to capital punishment. You can read this, why the audience might have been hostile, and the refutation to the first point and the refutation to the second point. Once you've fleshed out or developed each persuasive point within your body, because basically the body is a development of your persuasive point, it's time to move to the conclusion. And the first part of the conclusion is a summary where you basically repeat what you've said in your persuasive claim and persuasive points. Example, I'm sure you now realize you should donate blood. I hope I've persuaded you to donate blood for those three reasons. Number one is rewarding and worthwhile. And you could give additional examples, but it's not really necessary. But here, additional examples are given. Think of a dying person whose life you might save. Think of the great personal satisfaction you'll have. The second persuasive point was it's perfectly safe and painless. A, donating blood doesn't hurt a bit. And B, there's no chance of catching any kind of disease. And number three, it's very convenient. It will only take a few minutes of your time. Free round-trip transportation to the hospital is available. And we have another example related to casino gambling here, which you can read. And finally, you move to the memorable concluding remark, which is the last point or the last part of your presentation. It's the last part of your conclusion. And the purpose of the concluding remark is to reinforce why listeners should change their belief or opinion. And an effective way to do this is to make them think about the future, to remind them to take some kind of action. So you're giving a recommendation or you're talking about the future of the situation. And here we have a couple examples. Again, the one related to the water purification system. And this is it. And of course, you will have to have transitions in between your introduction, your body, and your conclusion. And within the body, you will need to have transitions. We're going to discuss this a bit later. So, now we move to the next page, which is page 192. And this is where we have the model presentation here in this chapter. Feng's model speech. Feng's presentation, and it's entitled Acupuncture is the Way to Go. Acupuncture. Treatment with needles, traditional Chinese treatment. So, again, the introduction consists of an opener building on areas of agreement, a statement of persuasive claim, and a preview or persuasive points. The statement of persuasive claim and the preview are what you would call your thesis statement. Then the body, then a summary and a memorable concluding remark, which are your conclusion, and of course in between some transitions. So let's take a look at this. I'm going to play the soundtrack and we can listen to it all together.
Chapter 9. Speaking to Persuade. Page 192. Activity 1. Listen to Feng's model speech. Notice the following components. Opener, building on areas of agreement. Statement of persuasive claim. Preview of main persuasive points. Body. Summary. Memorable concluding remarks. And transitions.
We all know someone who has been sick or in pain. Maybe you or someone you know has had painful surgery or suffers from depression. Often prescription medicines have side effects and make the patient feel even worse. When we don't feel well, we'd all like to feel better as quickly as possible. Acupuncture might be the solution. So today, I would like to persuade you to consider acupuncture when you are sick or in pain. There are many reasons you should consider acupuncture instead of traditional Western medicine. First, acupuncture is a medically proven treatment. Second, acupuncture is safe. And third, acupuncture effectively treats many conditions. Many of you might be skeptical about acupuncture because you believe it is an unproven treatment. You will be amazed to learn that acupuncture has been used for thousands of years and is medically respected worldwide. According to the Encyclopedia Britannica, acupuncture is an ancient Chinese medical technique for relieving pain and curing disease. It has been used successfully in Asian cultures for more than 2,500 years. Acupuncture is endorsed by American mainstream medicine as well as by international organizations. In 1997, a panel of scientists at the National Institutes of Health, also known as the NIH, determined that acupuncture had been clinically proven to be effective against a variety of medical problems and diseases. The World Health Organization, also called the WHO, has endorsed acupuncture as a medical therapy for over 15 years. Another reason you might avoid acupuncture is that you worry it is not safe. You will be very pleased to learn that acupuncture is in fact very safe. According to the Medical Acupuncture Online Journal, acupuncture is extremely safe, with virtually no chances of side effects, unlike prescription medicines. Many patients become addicted to pain medicines. This won't happen with acupuncture. According to the book Acupuncture for Everyone by Dr. Ruth Kidzer, acupuncture is not addictive. Also, there is absolutely no risk of catching any type of communicable disease from acupuncture needles. This is because modern acupuncturists use only sterilized, individually packaged needles that they throw away when they are done with each treatment. Have a look at this photo of a calm, happy patient receiving acupuncture. She knows how safe it is. Next, some of you might think that acupuncture is helpful for only a few minor problems. I'll now prove to you that acupuncture treats a wide variety of problems and diseases. First, clinical studies have shown that acupuncture helps patients with chronic pain. The WHO and the NIH have determined that it is effective in reducing pain from migraines, arthritis, and surgery. According to a 2003 WHO report, acupuncture has also been proven to help people with allergies, asthma, and heart problems. Both the WHO and NIH found that acupuncture reduces a patient's nausea from anesthesia and chemotherapy. Additionally, acupuncture helps people's immune systems to function better. This helps them to avoid colds, the flu, and other respiratory infections. Many people simply use acupuncture as an effective form of preventive medicine. Acupuncture also effectively treats many emotional problems. It helps patients with anxiety disorders and it alleviates stress. For example, in 1998, researchers at the University of Arizona found that acupuncture was effective in treating depression. In July 2011, a Massachusetts General Hospital study also demonstrated that acupuncture effectively treats clinical depression. So, I hope I have convinced you to consider acupuncture when you are sick or in pain. Remember, acupuncture is a clinically proven and respected medical treatment. It's perfectly safe. And finally, acupuncture treats a wide variety of physical and emotional problems. Now you can throw away those medicines that bother your stomach or make you sleepy. Remember, there is an alternative. The next time you aren't feeling well physically or emotionally, why not kill two birds with one stone? Acupuncture can help you with both.
Okay, let me move on to showing you another example of a persuasive presentation, which is a bit simpler and which you may find a bit more accessible. Let's take a look at this presentation here. Here we have the opener building on areas of agreement. Have you ever wanted to go on vacation somewhere exciting, but worried that it would cost too much, or that you may be bored once you get there? We all have these concerns when planning a vacation. We all want adventure, excitement, great food, and nice hotels without spending a lot of money. We all agree. Then we have the statement of purpose. Here, it's called statement of purpose. In the previous example of Feng's presentation, it was called the statement of persuasive claim. And the preview, here it's simple and straightforward. Plan a trip to Chengde, China for your next vacation. This is it. It encapsulates very clearly what you're trying to persuade your audience of. And what is it? To go to Chengde, China for your next vacation. For which reason, it's not even specified, but it would be nice if you were to specify the 3 reasons, or however many reasons you're going to develop within your body. Then we have a transition. Many of you may be worried that such a vacation will cost too much. You will be amazed to learn this is not the case. And then we move to the body, okay, which here the first part of the body contradicts the idea that it may be too expensive. A trip to Chengde, China is very inexpensive. Many airlines offer off-season discounts. The best hotel costs $25 a night for a double room. You can eat 3 delicious meals a day for less than $5. Local transportation is extremely inexpensive. A rickshaw anywhere in the city costs 15 cents. You can rent a bicycle for pennies a day. All right, then we move on to the second part of the body here, and you have a transition. You move on from the first part to the second part. You might think that Chengde is ugly, or you'll be bored there. Let me assure you that this is not the case. And here you contradict this idea that it may be ugly or boring. There are many things to see and do in Chengde. See the most beautiful and unusual temples in the world. The Lamaist Temple of Universal Tranquility. It was built by Emperor Qianlong in the 18th century. It has the largest wooden image of the Buddhist goddess of mercy, Guanyin. The Temple of Universal Joy. It was built in 1766. It has an incredible double terrace. It has a fabulous double roof of yellow tiles. The 18th century Temple of Universal Love. Photograph the most beautiful gardens in China. Rent a rowboat and ride on one of Chengde's magnificent lakes. Go on a shopping spree. Visit a unique shop or department store. Chengde is famous for several products: silk, furs, wood carvings, handmade oriental rugs. Then we move on to the third part of the body here, and we have a transition. Some people fear getting ill and not finding a doctor if they travel to a small city in China. This should not be a concern either. And here this contradicts this concern. Of course, at this present time with Corona, you may say, Mr. John, why are you selecting this topic? Well, this was written some years back, before Corona. Medical care in China is excellent. Chinese hospitals and doctors provide excellent care. There are many local clinics in all cities. A variety of medicines are available: standard antibiotics, herbal medicines. And this is it. And then when you move to the conclusion, you have a summary. First, I hope I've convinced you to make your next vacation Chengde, China. Remember, and you repeat the 3 points. Number 1, Chengde is a very inexpensive place to visit. You'll never get bored because there's so much to see and do. And in the unlikely event you need it, excellent medical care is available. And finally, you have the memorable concluding remark. You can stand on the same spot where China's most powerful emperors have stood. Your eyes will see the same green mountains they saw, the spectacular scenery, cool breezes, and striking sounds will amaze you. You will find your trip was worth the time and money you spent to get there. So, see your travel agent and make plans to visit Chengde, China soon. You may be convinced, you may not, but I think that whoever wrote this did a pretty good job and tried to persuade you to visit Chengde, China. This example presentation is included in the additional materials which are attached to the list of files which your teacher is sending to you. You can always refer to it. And I'm going to stop here for the second part of this tutorial, and I will continue with more instructions in the third part. Take care, stay well with your families. May God protect us all from Corona, and we'll see you for part 3.